The crack was so loud that my neighbor's dog started barking through the wall. That's the detail I keep coming back to. Not my brother's face when he heard it. Not the white-hot pain that traveled from my wrist all the way up to my shoulder. The dog. Because the dog reacted the way a living creature is supposed to react when something breaks. With alarm, with urgency, with the understanding that something had gone very wrong. My brother just laughed. "Relax," he said, already walking back toward the couch. "You're being dramatic." I was 26 years old, standing in my parents' living room in Phoenix on a Sunday afternoon, holding my left arm against my chest like I could keep it from falling apart if I just held tight enough. And my brother, 31, 6 feet tall, 220 pounds of someone who had been the favorite his entire life, had just slammed my arm against the doorframe because I'd beaten him at a video game. He called it messing around. That's what he always called it. I need to back up, because people who didn't grow up in a house like mine always ask the same questions. Why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you call someone? Those questions make sense from the outside. From the inside, it's more complicated. My brother's name is Joel. He's the kind of person who fills a room, loud, funny, magnetic when he wants to be. He played football in high school, got a partial scholarship to Arizona State, blew out his knee junior year, and came home. He never really left after that. He picked up work as a personal trainer, built up a decent client base, and settled into the role he'd always played in our family. The golden one. The one my parents sacrificed for. The one whose future was always worth protecting. I was the afterthought. Not cruelly, not dramatically, just practically. I was 4 years younger, a girl, quieter. I got good grades, which my parents acknowledged the way you acknowledge the weather. "Oh, it's nice out." Okay. Joel got good grades, which my parents celebrated like a civic event. The physical stuff started when we were kids. He used to pin me down on the carpet until I said uncle. He used to twist my wrist until I cried, then tell me I was weak for crying. My parents saw some of it. They didn't intervene the way parents should intervene. They said things like boys will be boys and you need to toughen up and stop provoking him. I wasn't provoking him, I was existing in the same house. By the time I was in my 20s, most of it had faded into something more psychological. The cutting comments at dinner, the way he'd dismiss anything I said, the way my parents would back him up automatically, reflexively, like they'd been doing it so long it had become muscle memory. But every few months when something set him off, a bad day at work, a lost game, anything, really, it would come back. I had my own apartment for 2 years, actually. I'd moved out at 23, got a place near downtown, worked as a dental office administrator. It was fine. It was quiet. It was mine. Then my dad had a cardiac event. Not a full heart attack, but close enough. And my mom started struggling with the anxiety that followed, and they asked me to move back temporarily to help out. That was 18 months before the Sunday with my wrist. Temporarily is a word that means different things to different people in different families. The Sunday it happened, Joel had come over for the afternoon. He came over most Sundays. My parents loved having him there. My mom would make his favorite foods. My dad would watch whatever game Joel wanted to watch. And I would sit in the margins of all of it, present but not quite included. We were playing a racing game on the old Xbox in the living room. My parents were in the kitchen. I was winning, which I hadn't even been trying to do. I just got lucky with a corner, and Joel's character spun out. He hated losing. He'd always hated losing. "You cheated," he said. "It's a video game," I said. "There's no way to cheat. You bumped me on purpose." "Joel, it's a racing game. You bump people." He set down his controller and I noticed his jaw tighten. I'd seen that before. I knew what that jaw meant, and I felt my stomach drop the way it always dropped. That old animal instinct that hadn't gone away, no matter how many years had passed, or how many times I'd told myself, I was an adult now, and things were different. I stood up. I was going to go to the kitchen. That was my plan. Just get up, go refill my water, let the moment pass. He grabbed my arm as I went by. I don't know exactly what he intended. Maybe he just meant to pull me back, make me sit down, finish the argument. But he had my forearm and he was standing and I was mid-step and my momentum went one way and his grip went another way and something had to give. The crack was so loud the neighbor's dog started barking. Joel let go. I stumbled back against the wall, and the pain was extraordinary. Not sharp exactly, more like my entire arm had been replaced with something that was radiating heat in every direction. I looked down. My wrist didn't look right. There was a wrongness to the angle that I couldn't fully process. My mom came to the kitchen doorway. "What happened?" she said. "She got her arm caught on the doorframe," Joel said before I could speak. "She tripped." I looked at him. He looked back at me, steady and calm, and in that look was everything. The warning, the history, the certainty that he already knew how this was going to go. "My arm," I said. "Something's wrong with my arm." My mom crossed the room and looked at my wrist, and for a second I saw something flicker in her face. Concern, maybe, or recognition. But then Joel said, "She's fine, she just needs to walk it off." And I watched my mother choose. She chose him. She always chose him. "Put some ice on it," she said. "You probably just sprained it." My dad had come in by then. I held out my arm, showed him the angle, and he winced. Then looked at Joel, then looked back at me. "Let's give it an hour," he said. "See how it feels." I went to the bathroom because it was the only room in the house with a door that locked. I sat on the edge of the tub for a long time. My phone was in my pocket. I could have called 911. I want to be honest about that. I could have, and I didn't, and I've thought about why 1,000 times since. Part of it was the old conditioning, the voice in my head that said, "Don't make this into a thing. Don't be dramatic, don't cause problems." Part of it was that I genuinely didn't know how bad it was. Pain is hard to calibrate when you've been told your whole life that you have a low threshold for it. And part of it, if I'm being fully honest, was fear. Not of Joel exactly, of the aftermath. Of what would happen to the family if I called. Of being the one who blew everything up. I took several photos of my wrist on my phone. That part I did right. I don't know exactly why. Some instinct. Something that said document this. But I took 6 photos from different angles and texted them to myself so they'd be timestamped. Then I went back out. My mom gave me a bag of frozen peas. Joel had turned the game back on. My dad was in his chair. The dog next door had stopped barking. It was superficially a normal Sunday afternoon in my parents' house in Phoenix. 2 hours later, my fingers had started to tingle. Then they went numb. Then the swelling moved up past my wrist toward my elbow. And the skin felt stretched and hot and wrong in a way that even I, with all my years of minimizing, could not explain away. My coworker, a woman named Frances, she's been at the practice for 11 years. She's the kind of person who remembers everyone's birthday and notices when you're not okay before you say anything, had texted me earlier that day to confirm a shift swap for Tuesday. I texted back, "I think I need to go to the hospital. My arm doesn't look right." She called me within 40 seconds. "Tell me what happened," she said. I stepped outside onto the back patio and told her, not all of it, the surface version. I fell. My wrist hit the doorframe. It's been 2 hours and my fingers are numb. "That sounds like it could be compartment syndrome," she said. She'd done a year of nursing school before switching careers. "That's serious. You need to go now, not later. Do you want me to come get you?" "No," I said. "I'll drive." "You shouldn't drive with one arm. I'm coming." She hung up before I could argue. I went inside and told my parents I was going to urgent care. Joel looked up from the game. "You don't need to make a whole thing of it," he said. "My fingers are numb," I said. I looked at him when I said it. I wanted him to understand that I knew what had happened, and that I was choosing right now to go get it documented. I don't know if he understood. He looked away. Frances arrived in 12 minutes. She took one look at my arm in the porch light, said, "Oh honey," under her breath, and drove me to the ER at Banner University Medical Center on Diamond Children's Road, the closest one with a full orthopedic unit. The triage nurse got me back within 20 minutes, which in an ER means they thought it was serious. The attending physician, a tired-looking man in his 50s who introduced himself as Dr. Reeves, examined my arm and ordered x-rays immediately. Then he ordered an MRI. The MRI took 40 minutes. I lay in this machine and listened to it knock and hum and tried not to think about anything. After the MRI, Dr. Reeves came back with a different energy, more careful. He sat down across from me, which was the first sign. "You have a distal radius fracture," he said. "That's your wrist. You also have early-stage compartment syndrome developing. That's why the tingling and the numbness. We're going to treat that tonight." He paused. Can you tell me how this happened? I told him the surface version first. Door frame fell. He nodded slowly. The fracture pattern, he said, is not consistent with a fall against a door frame. The fracture pattern is consistent with a torsional force, something twisting the arm while it was extended. He looked at me. We see this in certain kinds of injuries. We're required to ask about it. There was a woman standing just inside the doorway. I hadn't noticed her come in. She introduced herself as the hospital's patient advocate. I looked at Frances, who was sitting beside me. She reached over and put her hand on my good hand. My brother grabbed my arm, I said. We were standing, I was moving, and he had my forearm and something twisted. I heard it crack. Dr. Reeves made a note. The patient advocate made a note. Then Dr. Reeves said gently, "Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the circumstances?" I took out my phone. I showed him the 6 photos I'd taken 2 hours after the injury, with the timestamps. Then I opened my camera roll and found something I hadn't fully registered I had. 12 seconds of video from 6 weeks earlier of Joel pinning my arm behind my back in the kitchen because I'd used the last of the coffee he liked. I'd recorded it instinctively because I'd been scared in that moment, and then I'd buried it in my camera roll and not thought about it again. I handed my phone to the patient advocate. She and Dr. Reeves exchanged a look. "We're going to need to make a report," he said. 2 police officers came to my room while the orthopedic team was preparing to treat the compartment syndrome. I told them everything, not the surface version, the real version. All of it. The football scholarship, the knee, the Sunday afternoons, the way my parents filled in for Joel automatically, reflexively. The crack loud enough to make the neighbor's dog bark. The 2 hours with a bag of frozen peas while my fingers went numb. One of the officers asked about the video. I let them watch it. 12 seconds of Joel, 6 weeks ago, yanking my arm behind my back in our parents' kitchen. His voice on the recording saying, "Who do you think buys the groceries around here?" before he let go. The other officer wrote something in a notebook. Then she asked, "Are there other incidents you can document or witnesses who saw anything?" Frances had heard things, over the years, things I'd mentioned without framing them as abuse, just as complaints, just as my brother's a lot to deal with. She gave a statement. My parents were called. I was in surgery for the compartment syndrome by then. They had to release the pressure, a procedure that left 2 small incisions on my forearm, so I didn't see them arrive. Frances told me later that my mom had cried and my dad had been very quiet. She also told me that when the officer explained what was in the police report, my mom's first response had been to ask whether this was really necessary. Joel was not arrested that night. I want to be clear about that, because I think people expect the story to move faster than it does. He was contacted by police. He told them it was an accident. My parents backed him up. The case was referred to the county attorney's office and assigned to a detective. It took 4 months. I moved out of my parents' house the day after I was discharged from the hospital. Frances let me stay with her for 3 weeks while I found a new apartment. She helped me carry boxes with one arm in a brace. She did not make a big deal of any of it, which was exactly what I needed. I also called a therapist. I found one who specialized in family trauma, a woman named Dr. Park who had an office in Scottsdale and a calm, unhurried manner that reminded me of no one I'd grown up around. In our first session, she used the phrase, "long-term abuse normalization," and I cried for the first time since the hospital. Not because it was a new idea, but because hearing it named out loud felt like something finally clicking into place. The criminal charges were assault causing serious bodily injury, a Class 3 felony in Arizona, plus 1 count of domestic violence. The 6-week-old video, which the detective called highly significant, was central to the prosecution's case. It established pattern. It established that the Sunday incident was not an accident. My parents hired Joel a defense attorney. My mom called me twice in those 4 months, both times to tell me I was tearing the family apart. My dad didn't call at all. I didn't respond to either of my mom's calls. I had a restraining order, which made the logistics simpler, even when the emotions were not. Joel's attorney tried to get the video suppressed. The judge denied the motion. Joel's attorney tried to argue that the Sunday incident was accidental and that the fracture pattern could be explained by a fall, The orthopedic surgeon who had treated me testified for 90 minutes about why that was not anatomically possible. Dr. Reeves testified about the mandatory reporting protocol and the photograph timestamps. I testified for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I was asked, on cross-examination, why I hadn't called 911 myself. It's a fair question. I've already told you the answer. The conditioning, the calibration problem, the fear. But I told it again on the stand, with the jury watching, and I tried to be honest rather than sympathetic. I didn't try to make myself sound heroic. I made bad choices in that bathroom. I also made a good choice when I texted Francis, and another good choice when I took those photos, and another good choice when I handed my phone to the patient advocate. That's what I said. Joel was convicted on both counts. I was in the courtroom when the verdict came in. I'd expected to feel relief, and I did. But there was something else under it. Something complicated and heavy that I didn't have a word for yet. Grief, maybe. For the family that had never been what I needed. For the years of frozen peas and walking it off and you're being dramatic. For the version of my brother who might have existed if someone, somewhere, had intervened earlier. He was sentenced to 2.5 years, with mandatory counseling. My parents attended the sentencing. They sat on his side of the courtroom. My mom looked at me once, across the aisle, and her expression was something I couldn't read. Not quite anger, not quite sorrow, something caught between the two. I looked back at her, and then I looked away, because there was nothing to say that hadn't already been said in courtrooms and depositions and 2 unanswered phone calls. Francis threw me a little party when I got my cast off. Just the 2 of us. Her apartment, takeout Thai food. One of those grocery store cakes that says congratulations in blue frosting. She bought me a card that said you did it, and signed it from Francis and also from me because you did the hard part. I taped it to my refrigerator in my new apartment. My wrist aches when it rains. The orthopedic surgeon said that's normal with this type of fracture, that it may improve over time and may not. I've stopped trying to predict which days will be bad days and started just keeping a wrist brace in my purse. I still work at the dental practice. I got a small raise in January. I see Dr. Park every other week now instead of every week. We're spacing out, which she says is a sign of progress and which I'm cautiously choosing to believe. I don't talk to my parents. That's not a dramatic statement. It's just the current reality. Maybe it changes. Maybe it doesn't. I'm trying to stop organizing my life around maybes. What I know is this. I took those photos. I answered the doctor's question honestly. I handed over the phone. Those were the choices I made when it counted, and whatever else was messy or imperfect or scared, those choices were right. The neighbor's dog barked because something broke. Eventually, so did I. But in the other direction.